Hey, it's Mazzy. Welcome back to the channel. The Gospel, according to Mazzy's music, of 10 records that sound fantastic, that were never promoted, put out as audiophile records. That's a relatively new thing. Now there's more labels jumping on the bandwagon, which is kind of a good thing, maybe. In the $40 range, Universal has a new vinyl, vinylly, not vinyl me, please. Now vinylology, Vitology, I don't even know the name. Going along with the Rhino Hi-Fis and the Tone Poets, and the labels are realizing they need to do their own thing, or it's profitable to do their own quote audiophile all analog type things. But these are all analog records. These are vintage records. I like vintage records. I like new records. It doesn't matter if it's the in particular recording and release. So these are 10 that I picked because I've been playing these over the last several weeks while I was going through the journey of testing these speakers that I decided to keep. The Spender D7.2 speakers, a used pair that I got through Hawthorne Stereo in Seattle. Plug for them. Love that shop. And they took away, ended up trading in those Bauer & Wilkins, so they're gone. They've left the Mazzy world headquarters here. But these records are not the only ones, but I'll tell you why I like them, and about the music, obviously, because it's the music first. But they just tend to be records that if I do want to hear something and that I know really well in terms of music, and I want to get a taste and I get I know sense memory what they sounded like on older systems I had, going back in some cases 50 years here. So we're going to start out with a record that's come up in the conversation again. My friend, the Waxed, Rob, picked up a copy of this at I think the Hollywood Record Fair recently. And I've had this record for decades. And interesting about it, it came up in the discussion again several years ago when Steve Hoffman, none other than Steve Hoffman, said, what a great sounding record, that this is an audiophile record, which wasn't set out to be a audiophile record. And the top song was a huge hit, and that is Let Us Go Into the House of the Lord. And this is the Church of God in Christ, Northern California State Youth Choir, director Edwin R. Hawkins. You've all heard this record. Remember Oh Happy Day? Oh Happy Day was, I don't know if it topped the charts, but it was certainly up there. It was certainly a cultural change in music. This is recorded at an Oakland church, in a church, by a choir, by a gospel choir. There they are, right there. And this is the album. Of course, that was a top 10 single. This is really a self-produced thing that came out. Let me show you the label in this case. And it's recorded with a few microphones overhead. And let's see, this copy I ended up getting at Recycle Records for $4.50, recycled in San Francisco. But I remember we sold some of these in the store. I don't remember if they were on consignment or what, but it was mostly the single. And I never picked up the record until maybe the 80s or so. And that's when I got this. And it's on Century Records, Dimension 70 recording system. This is a stereo record that is an unbelievable, great sounding record. Don't sleep on this. If you know Oh Happy Day, interesting thing about it is when George Harrison was sued for recording My Sweet Lord, remember that? And he got sued by the publishers of He's So Fine, I think, is it the Chiffons? He lost originally. I think it was overturned. But he even said, really, the influence was Oh Happy Day. It's got that, My Sweet Lord, Oh Happy Day, a joyous spiritual presentation. And all the songs on here are obviously gospel songs about the Lord and our Jesus Christ. Now, I said this many times, I love gospel music. I'm not a religious man, especially a Christian or Baptist person, disciple. but I love the music. I love the spirituality of the music. And I used to go occasionally to Glide Memorial Church in San Francisco, on the edge of the Tenderloin near downtown, where they would have these gospel choirs play every Sunday, and all kinds of music fans and religious disciples would go. Even Bono went and sang with the choir at least once. And a lot of groups would sing. A lot of performers would join in and sing. And it was really a joyous place to be and experience. So check this record out again. Let Us Go to the House of the Lord, the Church of God in Christ, director Edwin R. Hawkins. Oh, happy day, when Jesus comes. What a great sounding record. And even Steve Hoffman says how audiophile that record is. Next, get your shot glasses ready. Ry Cooder's Jazz. This is 1978 now. This is a different direction. And I understand Ry is not in love with this record. This was arranged by Joseph Byrd, who I think we just lost. I think he just passed away. Joseph Byrd was part of the United States of America, that album in 1968, that psychedelic electronic album. And of course, the Feel Hippies, very electronic avant-garde music on Columbia Records. But this is great because it has a lot of sort of acoustic-based 30s jazz, like Bix Beiderbecke on here. You have Jelly Roll Morton tracks, traditional tracks, a couple of Bix Beiderbecke, maybe 2 or 3 songs, Bert Williams songs, and just some beautiful jazzy, old-timey music. But the recording of Cooder's guitar, the percussion on this, the sax, the tuba, the pump horn, the cornet. It's not a big band album, but it's beautifully recorded. There's a lot of mid-range sounds in the clarinets, things like that, and the baritone horns on this. You got guitar, mandolin, and triple harp by Ry Cooder on the Pearls and Tijuana, a Jelly Roll Morton adaptation, Ry Cooder, and it's basically 20s, 30s jazz, and it's an excellent sounding record, probably the closest to audiophile. I believe there was a MoFi years ago, and this would be an excellent Rhino Hi-Fi or a Rhino Reserve. Come on, Rhino, check this out. Pick this album out. It's not an expensive album, and this was the later Warner Brothers years, obviously in '78, so it's this label, Warner Brothers. There you go. Another album I haven't shown in a long time, but I showed it a lot early on when I was starting my channel. And I always talk about A&M Records. A&M, for whatever reason, in the early mid-'70s, had some great sounding records. Late 60s, early 70s, their label, this label, whenever you see an album with this label, this kind of pukey, greenish, brown label, Shit Brendel, usually it sounds good. Now, obviously, it depends on the master or anything, but for whatever reason, that period of A&M is incredible. And this record, Sergio Mendes in Brazil 77, you know Sergio Mendes in Brazil 66, A Fool on the Hill, that very kind of poppy, loungy, bossa nova type Brazilian music from the 60s that were all over the charts. But this is an unusual album. This is a Brazilian jazzy record, a lot of percussion, a lot of vocals, but not really as lyrical as they are just kind of bop shua wah type of thing. This record sounds incredible. And again, this is the one you want to get, not the later A&M records. Find this copy. I don't believe this is an expensive record at all. And it's just a stunningly beautiful record. This is called Primal Roots. So it's got that really Brazilian percussive vibe. Great vocal recording, great rhythm, and it's just the musicology is stunning on this record. So one of the best records, and I played this to these new Spender speakers, and it's an unbelievably wonderful recording. I'm sticking with A&M, and I realize I didn't pull these because they were on A&M. Now, I do have a brown A&M of this, but Procol Harum Salty Dog is their third album, and this album might be my favorite Procol Harum album. It used to be their second album, Shine On Brightly, but for some reason, this is the one that's matured and has held up beautifully over the years. It goes beyond psychedelia. It's not that. It's not prog. It's a light prog, but it's not a light album. It's a heavy album. It's art rock in a way. You got those great organ bits of Matthew Fisher and the great piano playing of Gary Brooker and his vocals. That's blue-eyed, soulful vocal. And of course, Robin Trower guitar parts on here. And of course, B.J. Wilson. One of the great underrated drummers in music. But the orchestration on this, the arrangements on this, and of course this one happens to be a promo copy. So instead of that wonderful Chip Brendel label, it's got the white label, and it's as good. If you see a brown label of this now, obviously we all know it, you know, country of origin things. I have never heard a UK copy. So theoretically that should be better, and maybe it is. But I don't have one. I haven't heard one. Ironically, one of the great versions of this, and I didn't really want to kind of throw out some audiophile versions, but the Mo-Fi version of this is a stunner. It may surpass this, but even if you don't go with the Mo-Fi, this is an incredible sounding record and a wonderful record. It's got a great, great vibe to it. I love that record dearly. Another A&M record, but this is later, so this isn't the brown label. This is from 1976, and this is Nils Lofgren, Cry Tough. Big fan of Nils Lofgren. Most people now know him because of he's in the E Street Band. He's been in the E Street Band with Bruce for 30 plus years. But him and his brother started a band called Grin, and then he put some solo albums out, and then, of course, these solo albums on A&M Records. A slew of solo albums. A&M produced him and pushed him and promoted him, but it didn't quite push him over the top. They thought he'd be a big star like Peter Frampton. Frampton Comes Alive, and they issued a live radio-only record that I have in my collection, and they never put that out initially, and finally the double live album was 2 years too late, I think, when punk was really hitting. But this, out of all of his records, it's not even my favorite one, but the sound on this, the dynamics in this record is a beautiful recorded record. This is produced by Al Kooper and David Briggs, because obviously Neil Lofgren also worked with David Briggs and Neil Young, part of Crazy Horse, sometimes on and off with Neil Young over the decades. Great guitar player. Back in the day when you would see him live, he'd do these backwards flips playing that Stratocaster guitar. He had a certain finger picking style, great vocals, but the sound on this, it opens up with Cry Tough, that really builds up with this percussive thing, and the guitars come in, and it's kind of, it seems like, I think there's like a electric piano there. Yeah, electric piano and synthesizer by Al Kooper on that, and it builds up, and it's beautiful, and it's got some background vocals, and Chuck Rainey, of course, on bass. Tom Lofgren, his brother, also on guitar here. This is a good record. Again, not his best, but a really excellent record and a great sounding record. It's Not a Crime is a great song. He has a lot of dynamics, not only in the sound of this recording, not in terms of the production, but in his songwriting. He's a great songwriter, and I think a lot of people just missed the boat on Nils Lofgren. Get these 70s albums, get the Grin albums, at the turn of the decade, maybe late 60s, whatever, and especially these A&M records of his. He's incredible music and incredible arrangements, and this is a great one too. He does a song on here, a cover of For Your Love, a very kind of groovy, slow, vibey version of the Graham Gouldman song that the Yardbirds. Emil Richards is on percussion on this, and Jim Gordon, that great tragic story of a drummer. Jim Gordon has that forward drive, and anything he's on in the 70s, these early 70s especially, early to mid 70s, is just grabs you and pushes the music forward. So Cry Tough by Nils Lofgren on A&M Records. Another record that I adore, that bombed, and now it's become this huge cult favorite, been reissued on various, and 4AD did a box set on this one record, and there was a tug of war between this artist and David Geffen on Asylum, because it went way over budget. and it's produced by Thomas Jefferson Kay, and that is No Other by Gene Clark. Of course, the former Byrds, he leaves because he's afraid of flying. He comes back a little bit with the Byrds. He co-writes or gets the genesis of 8 Miles High. He's the quiet, silent type that wrote the first songs for the Byrds, the songs that weren't Dylan covers and folk rock covers. He was the one. He was the guy in the front with the tambourine. But he made a great series of records. Intervention has done a bunch of his A&M records, and I highly recommend those Gene Clark records. He also did some great Flying Burrito Brothers records, a great archival, audiophile label, independent label. Don't sleep on those records. But this has a good vibe to it. And this is very unusual of him because there's a little bit of the country rock vibe, but it goes into this other thing that's kind of jazzy and spooky and dark and moody and electric pianos. And I think there's only, 8 songs on this. In fact, he recorded the record, and I think David Geffen said we need more songs. It wasn't enough. And he went back, and it's a wonderful record. Every song is great, and it soars. And it is a dark record to a point and a mood. Think of not sounding like Nick Cave, but in that kind of mid to later period of Nick Cave records. Again, not sounding like that, but if you could play these. In fact, there's that, This Mortal Coil. You know that? This Mortal Coil was sort of a super group of 4 AD artists. And they put out a series of records, and I have the CD box set, and I think I only have 2 of the records on vinyl. But the CD box set has all these songs that they would cover, and they were kind of dark songs that they would cover. And they would record, I think they recorded at least one Gene Clark song. And then, of course, the 4th disc on that set is the original versions, like Emmylou Harris and Gene Clark and others that, just incredible music and great kind of eerie, goth-like cover versions. So No Other, a really great sounding record. Now this is one, I don't really show the Doobie Brothers a lot, although I have the first 5 records. Again, Greenie, Toulouse Street. This is their second album, produced by Ted Templeton, of course, who was in Harper's Bazaar, Feeling Groovy, and of course became an A&R and staff producer at Warner Brothers. Of course, you may know him from producing a lot of great music like Van Halen. Listen to the music with the phase shifting that goes beyond. The opening guitar on that song is one of the best sounding bits of any record I have in my collection. This is that great Tom Johnson led. Before Michael McDonald joined the group, this is the period, the first 2-3 albums with Tom Johnson. He had a little bit of a health breakdown, and he left for a while, and that's when McDonald came in. But he came back, but this is a San Jose band that became massive, obviously, even later. But this song and the way this whole album runs, but listen to the music again. One of those great songs that you can blast on any decent, halfway decent stereo, and it'll be a killer sound. I heard that version in 1973 because of this came out in 72, but there's a 4 LP set of Warner Brothers sampler that was in the retailers. It sold for maybe $8 or $6, and it was 4 LPs. And the version of Listen to the Music on that, and Black Sabbath Paranoid's on that, I think, too. It sounded so good. Whoever cut that version, that 4 LP set, did an amazing job, and it's really great on this. So, Toulouse Street, this is a cutout promo copy. I got, I think when they resurfaced it the following year at Warner Brothers. But Toulouse Street, listen to the music. The entire record is good. It's a rock record, but it's obviously got that openness vibe, and a lot of acoustic guitars as well, but really great sounding album. This is one that needs no introduction, and I pulled it just because. 1970, Working Man's Dead. And again, like all these other Warner Brothers records, you want the Greenie on this. Now, this has been reissued by MoFi and Rhino semi-audiophiles. A lot of great versions. And of course, in 1970, Working Man's Dead, along with American Beauty, were this just double whammy. They didn't even sell that great at the time. I think country rock, bands were doing it going back into the 67, 68. Obviously, Beau Brummels and the Byrds. And in fact, Bradley's Barn would have been a good one to pick here by the Beau Brummels. That is an excellent sounding record. But I also could have picked American Beauty. They're like a double whammy of sort of country crossover rock records, but beautifully, beautifully produced and recorded. I just love this record. And any version you get, and yes, the back was always upside down like this. That's the way it's supposed to be. There were some versions that are not like that, but Working Man's Dead, Grateful Dead. Needs no introduction, but an essential record in the collection. Another record that came out, I believe it was the last record that Bert Jansch did, and this is Black Swan. Beth Orton's on this with vocals. Obviously, this great guitar player, him and John Renbourn. I grew up listening to those records, or when I was in high school, the records of Pentangle, starting in that first one in 1968. They kind of crossover British folk music, but they're a little more jazzy than some of the other bands. Fairport Convention is another one I like, but his series of solo albums, the collaborations with John Renbourn, are astounding. He sings on here, beautiful recorded versions, again, the duets with Beth Orton, and his wonderful, wonderful guitar playing. And I believe this was the last studio album he recorded, Black Swan. It's been reissued a few times, originally on Drag City, I think. At least this version is. I don't think this is an original. I don't know if it came out on vinyl to begin with. I first got it on CD, and once this came out, I was all over it. And it sounds excellent. But the CD sounds excellent too. So another one that I played on these spenders over the last month or so, and it's a brilliant record. And last, a record that has great dynamics, great thumping bass. It howls like the wind on side one. It's blue-eyed soul, it's kick-ass rock, a great fusion of just this banshee, beautifully controlled vocal style of Tim Buckley, and that's Greetings from L.A. The freak folk artist who did all those records, going from back to Bizarre Records to Elektra Records, and goes to Warner Brothers. This is Straight Records, I should say, which was Herb Zappa's partner, manager, Herb Cohen, would do these. But this is the one, my original copy from, it says 1972, I believe, also. And this is with the intact postcard. This would be a killer record as a reserve or a Rhino reissue. Side one is a perfect record. It builds, it's sexy. You feel the vibe, you feel the sensuality in his voice, and the bass and the rhythm section of this are dynamic. Even the slower, moody, sexy songs are just, they just heat things up. Now, these were the days, back in the 60s and 70s, LA looked like that. The smog in LA was something else. And whatever you think about climate change and everything, having the EPA gas mixes added in California cleaned Los Angeles air up. It doesn't look like this anymore. I'd go there the first times in the 60s and 70s. My eyes would burn as soon as I arrived or got off the plane or got out of the car. Ain't like that anymore. What a wonderful, wonderful record. So a lot of people may not understand what this is about. LA was smog city there. Side one has 3 songs, 3 long, expansive songs. Move With Me, Get on Top of Me Woman, and The Sweet Surrender has that smoldering sexual tension and build up on that. Side 2 is great. Hong Kong Bar is cool. But the funky bass guitar stuff. 10 records that you can buy fairly cheaply. I think most of these, and will sound killer on your stereo. Thanks for watching. As he loves you.